All right, so when I originally said yes to doing this talk, I thought it was going to be like 50 people, and everyone would know me, and I would know everybody, and I wouldn't have to like introduce myself or like what Black Sky is. And I told myself that everyone's going to know each other, so I'm going to just cause a little bit of trouble. And then Boris said it's like 300 people, 170 people in person, a bunch of people online. And then, that sounds like a lot of people, so maybe people don't know me. And, I'm like, all right, well, I'll keep it chill. And then I came here and it seemed like a lot of folks like knew the different work that I do with Risky and with Black Sky. And I'm like, oh, I think they like me. And so I told Boris that, okay, cool, I still would chill because of that. And I woke up today and I was like, nah, I'm gonna cause some trouble. I view my position as the app protocol problem child. I specifically think that I'm an entrepreneur because I have problems with authority and I don't like following rules. If you met my mom, one of the first stories she'd probably tell you is how I used to run around our village in Guyana just like screaming F you to anyone. Not because I was mad, but because it was fun. I liked being the antagonist. And if you know the origins of Black Sky's green list, if you know, you know. A lot would make sense. Yeah, this is a 50 Cent reference. I tried, I can't change, I'll always be the same. But so I will introduce myself a little bit. You may have heard of me, or you may have heard of Black Sky. The long story short is I founded Black Sky 2 years ago. It is what I assume is the largest Black community on the decentralized web. It is one of the biggest app protocol implementations built in Rust. Over 1.5 million people have used the Black Sky feeds. We get about 370,000 people viewing the feeds every month. We have an 8-person volunteer moderator team, all compensated, if they hit certain thresholds. And the implementation is over 100,000 lines of code. Some of that is code gen, but a lot of it's not. And I am now, as of February, a fellow within the Applied Social Media Lab at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University. Thank you. They provide me with funding and cool opportunities to connect with people. I'm also, very importantly, a mutual aid organizer at We the People NYC. And it influences a lot of my thinking on things. And basically, the way I view it is that Git push origin main has led me to Harvard. It's also led me to getting doxxed by white supremacists. It has led me to being mentioned on CNN, and has almost got me going broke a couple times in trying to do this work. So I mentioned mutual aid. Dr. Tressie McMillan Cotton, who is notably not on Blue Sky, wrote this beautiful article that I found about the difference between mutual aid and charity when I was doing research on a previous project I worked on called Paper Tree. And we're short on time, so I'll just kind of skim some parts of this. But it emphasizes horizontal networks of solidarity. It looks like members of a community sussing out what each member, what members need. That can look like an online social media group. These all, tie back to, community and building community needs. I blocked out the New York Times because, fuck the New York Times. This is one part of the mutual aid work that we do with We the People and Bushwick Ida Mutua. I don't really love Dean Spade's everything that is written, but some things I find really helpful in the framing of the difference between a mutual aid organization and traditional organizations. Some folks are here building public benefit corporations, nonprofits, etc. Even though Black Sky is a Delaware C Corp, I don't operate it like that. I operate it like a mutual aid group. There's a very funny thing there that says, beg, borrow, and steal supplies. I know mutual aid groups that literally do that, and that is kind of my mindset in how I build Black Sky. Boris said yesterday that no one here are enemies, but I don't think that necessarily means we're all friends. Just because we all believe in decentralized tech does not mean we align on values, and that's important because good intentions can still lead to anti-patterns. And something I didn't consider that I was talking to Blaine and Nick on our walk over here this morning is that crucially, it also means that as a developer community, we are all the more robust by having to cooperate between different actors with different values in the system. But I just want you to know my values. And that is like as summed up by software as resistance. Earlier I mentioned the word village. I think Black Sky has taken a village. I think there's some people who, because of the traditional like white-founded cult of personality kind of tech companies, think that one person can kind of come up with some of this stuff and build it. That is not the case. Black Sky is what it is because of all the people who, some of the folks up here. So Avetta sent out the first invites for Black users on Blue Sky. Clinton has, who's in the room right now, I'm getting emotional. Thought I was gonna cry. Clinton has committed, built a bunch of stuff for Risky. Dr. K literally came up with the how-tos for our moderation. Linda is the reason there's a bunch of folks here today from Black Sky. And Natalie, who's been building a bunch of cool stuff for us to help make Black Sky more decentralized with a tool called Safe Skies that I will get into a little bit later. And a bunch of other folks, you know what I mean? I will keep getting emotional if I keep talking about all the things that they've done for Black Sky. Cool. So I think a lot of people cite like Twitter as an app that put a lot of like Black cultural practices into it, you know, a la Black Twitter. But I actually think like Cash App is another really cool example. So someone did this like research that was like, when asked about motivations that prompted ongoing use of Cash App by African Americans, participants attributed aspects like traditions of mutual aid, sustaining informal economies within Black communities, along with accessibility of the platform. And so for me, I think this is like an important distinction that the technology didn't necessarily invent mutual aid, but it's used for it. And it's like, how are the affordances of the system that you're working in can be used for the aims that you're trying to achieve, which is a lot of how I approach App Protocol. And so the TLDR of all this is like, I'm a conduit of practices. I didn't come up with all this stuff. This song is a song I really like. I was like singing it as I was walking through here just now. It's a soca song. It's like, my great-great-grandmother passed it down, my great-grandmother passed it down, my mother get it from my granny, and mommy gave it to me. And there was a TikTok trend of Caribbean folks with this as the sound, and it was just all the things that they kind of like randomly do, like banging a steel spoon against a pot to like knock the food off, or like putting the way you put food in your palm to taste it, or certain hygienic products we use. And I also think of that, like Jean-Michel Basquiat has a quote that, if you want to talk about influence, man, then you've got to realize that influence is not influence, it's simply someone else's idea going through my new mind. All right, so the name of this talk is Beyond Horseless Carriages. There is there's this, the Benz motor wagon. This was the first automobile. And it was literally a horse-drawn carriage with an engine. So literally a carriage without a horse. And I feel like this is where we're at with App Protocol. It's just like lots of horseless carriages, lots of things that look like stuff that we built before, but with new technology. And so I'd really like for folks, well, I think it's important, right? Like new technologies, it's like a pattern that happens. New technologies imitate the old technologies that they're replacing. It makes it understandable for folks, so there's like a benefit to that. But if we never move past that, then we don't really reap the full benefits of the innovation. So I particularly wanted this to be the topic of my talk because lots of folks reach out to me to see how we can work together. And I think this is where like there is sometimes a misalignment in some of the just the underlying values and principles, you know what I mean? So our first contradiction to the like, okay, move beyond horseless carriages is that, like Ted mentioned yesterday, a blue sky is kind of like a skeuomorphism. It looks a lot like Twitter. This left-hand side for folks is Ted's post on Blue Sky. Right-hand side is a post from Twitter/X. And it's funny because even in Ted's post, he said that the app is a skeuomorphism that people grok and understand, and I find that funny just because grok is right there on the thing. So yeah, and then people even refer to things as like TikTok clones, Twitter clones, but you're building on a whole new underlying structure, so it's not really a clone because a clone is a copy. Skeuomorphisms are helpful. They help people with familiar designs, right? This is, a calculator folks may have used in school, and then the calculator app that's on your phone. It was funny when I pulled this image off the internet, but I was gonna maybe just take a screenshot of my iPhone, and I found there's a new setting for math notes, and that was weird for me, because that was a completely different, so where the skeuomorphism actually was helpful. It was like, I didn't have to look up I didn't need a tutorial to use this calculator, but I do need a tutorial to know what the hell math notes are. I assume it's like some AI thing, but I don't know. So this lowers the barrier to entry for folks migrating, and that has been, really helpful for people. People often refer to Blue Sky, who are maybe vaguely aware of it, as this Twitter. It's exactly Twitter, actually. My tattoo artist referred to it as exactly Twitter. However, you also have, what I find that's important with Black Sky as a community is they recognize that it is not exactly Twitter, because they know that Rudy runs Black Sky and that I have control over the experience. Skeuomorphisms, again, I'm a big fan of them myself. As I mentioned in my previous project, Paper Tree. I didn't know the word for it back then, but I did make Paper Tree look like a bank account. So Paper Tree was a way for people to pool funds and share. Basically, I was trying to make a digital mutual aid product. And falling in line with another cultural practice called susus that I always heard about growing up. And yeah, so it was a way, it kind of also, if you're from the crypto world, like a multi-sig wallet, blah, blah, blah. People pool funds and other people can approve it before the funds get transferred. And yeah, the idea was a shared community bank account, so I made it look like a bank account. And that makes it really easy to understand. You didn't even need to know what a susu was. But we can't stop at just imitating. We have the ability with App Protocol to create new experiences, give people more control, allow communities to curate their content, and really empower community builders, if not just the users themselves. I feel like it's like the comparisons are often between big social media platforms or these huge Goliath corporations, and then the complete opposite is empowering end users, but something that I always get tripped up about is end users kind of want to use a thing. They don't necessarily want or need to know the underlying stuff. They just need to know that there's something new that they can do. You know what I mean? These folks have kids. They don't need to know what a PDS is. So another contradiction to this is that I do think we can learn from the past. This was a cool talk. I feel like I do a lot of looking into things from the past, and this was a cool book and a talk about kind of a queer history of the internet, and talking about BBS systems that were specific for communities. They weren't dealing with global social media problems. They still had intra-community problems, which is a whole concept that I don't think too many people are like familiar with. But you deal with small world problems, and small world problems don't require or don't like you don't need AI to do content moderation for a smaller community. You don't need to worry about like the problems that have occurred because of global timelines and centralized algorithmic feeds. And and super ironic. And boom. So yeah, I like to draw parallels between the current state of the internet with like older systems. Like this is on the far left-hand side. This is like the Universal Black Pages, which was like one of these like early internet resources. There was Afro. I think it was like AfroNet BBS. Lots of folks know about Black Planet. Omar Wasso is a huge inspiration to me. You know, folks like to talk about Black Twitter specifically and draw comparisons. And then there's Black Sky. There's a common thread between all these things because I view it as like a specific kind of practice of information sharing, and it's just using the new technology to enact that. I just added this slide because Aaron mentioned that like you could like look to the Black Panthers, and it wasn't that long ago. The Black Panthers are still alive. This is Bobby Rush toting heat, and in the far left, that's Fred Hampton, and that is me and We the People with Bobby Rush. He can still do push-ups. He still cries about Fred Hampton. You know what I mean? And they look to the new generation to see what we got going on. So just say, they are there, the elders and ancestors are there. You can ask them. Cool. Where I particularly see an interesting space here is this like path to a zillion. So there's obviously not a zillion human beings on the planet. By the way, if you've asked me about what my talk is going to be about or anything in the last couple of days, I basically give you this spiel. The Fediverse felt very concerned with 50 to 100 person style communities. Blue Sky is paving the way to like a 4 billion person like social network, but decentralized. That's really cool. There's not anything in this middle area that I call like subreddit-sized, internet forum-sized communities. That is the size of Black Sky. Now like I say a zillion because if you ever looked at the Big Sky repo, it says store a zillion users of PDS like repos with more than a version, blah blah blah. But that's the scale that the network is supposed to scale to. That's cool. But then if there's only, like that just seems so weird to me if there's just, you either have 50 or 100 or you have billions. It's a big gap. And so I'm very interested in this middle space. I think I would like to see a future internet made of many autonomous communities instead of these either a giant silo or just basically a slightly large group chat. And I think that if we're building this infrastructure for a more open web, I'd like Black Sky to kind of be a toolkit for other folks to build similar sized communities. With the goal of letting each community be self-governable, hosting their own data, set your own moderation rules, customize your algorithms, but very importantly, still be connected to the wider web. I think it was one of the Amoya fellows who had mentioned that that a lot of times people attempt to build these like Black apps. There were Black browsers. There's like Spill. Folks bring up Spill to me from time to time. And then there's like, what people find, some of the feedback is that, it's kind of like second rate. And so it doesn't really get adoption. And I think that like, while I'm sure there's like a bunch of stuff in that, one of the things that's like, I think is a fundamental misunderstanding is that I don't think you want to just be like cordoned off in your community. I do believe that you want to have a place, but positioned within a wider network. You still want access to all the things, and then you just want a section, for yourself. And then in that section, be able to have kind of your own rules. That's my personal belief. And I think there's a lot of other people who share that belief, and I want to help them get set up on stuff. Case actually we were chatting the other day and had this, we're talking about moderation of older communities and all these clever ways that people have like built things and like just approach this problem, because you do that. And I think a very funny thing to me about people building apps on App Proto and not wanting to do content moderation is fine, right? You as a developer, I guess that's fine. But something that shouldn't be misunderstood is there are people who actually like that. They view it as like community care. It's not just a thing you do because you have to. And so perhaps people should consider how you build things that allow more people, like allow those people to do the work. There's folks who, the Black Sky was able to kind of build a funding model out of it, but there's people who do like subreddit moderation for equally sized communities, and there's no business model for that. So yeah, I use I often talk about like dotted line communities. And when I explain to folks who are using Black Sky, it's like, you never post specifically to Black Sky, but it is kind of like a place, right? There's this kind of area, and it is different from Black Twitter, because, when people talk about that, that's just, maybe it's who you follow or whatever. But no, like with Black Sky, there's a place you go to, but that place is not really separate. All right, so it's just like, it's kind of squishy. And Darius Kazemi gave a great talk previously about squishy amoeba-like objects, and how when folks were designing the ARPANET, they had these diagrams. And like some of these services are very clear, right? Stuff looks like queues, or they look like some type of it's like some buffer thing. And then these like handlers and interpreters are just kind of like literally squiggly lines. Because they're kind of amorphous. They may represent one thing, they may represent a couple things. And then he drew this like parallel to these communities that there's like, you can see a circle for around this like local area, and then they have connections to other communities, and then you can kind of like draw an area around that as just kind of like a more defined community. And it's like neighborhood. And that's how I kind of think of like Black Sky. It's like a lot of the early on, I was adding people by hand and looking at who they follow, and then I just kind of put them into the feed, and then I was adding other people as they came on in their friend groups that they brought on, and then it became this one big thing called Black Sky. But it was really early on. It was actually like 30 different communities. One of the biggest ones being like Black academics, like the educators. And for one of my other spicy takes, and I meant to make this interactive and ask people to raise their hands if they knew what a car file was or how to open one. Because to me, I find it very interesting that we say it's decentralized, right? Folks are not doing content moderation themselves, and then not necessarily understanding the primitives of the protocol. And so if Blue Sky disappeared literally tomorrow, because we wouldn't know, right? We wouldn't know the internal financials. How would you just keep the network running? That's even ignoring a relay being there, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's just kind of assuming someone else, I guess, will will pick things up. And yeah, so I'm more about let's bring that to the forefront. You know, let's build our own infrastructure. So, you know, we built myself, Clinton, other contributors, Ripperoni. We built a PDS from scratch in the risky implementation. We're now working on a relay. You know, I was talking to D Holmes the other day, and I was like, I just thought this is what we were doing. I thought that was the goal of the whole enterprise. But at the same time, I know that hosting stuff is like out of folks' reach. You know, the problem with decentralized technology is always that no one ever wants to run their own servers. And so, you know, I put that little deploy to Heroku thing because is something that we would like to do. Just someone should do it. Someone should. I mean, I'm giving sauce away again. You know what I mean? But someone should do it. And shout out to folks like North Sky because I think that's cool. I think people should. I saw there's a lot of pushback on them. I think that's weird. I think that people should host infrastructure and build communities around it. So another thing that we're now in the section of the talk where I talk about like the actual like beyond, because a cool thing that Aaron had talked about, and there was the question from Tony, I think, about what are people doing? What are the like features people want? I think we should build those things. You know what I'm saying? I think we should build. Are we going to wait for a private state, or are we going to build private spaces? It could be backwards compatible. It could not be. But if, you know, for me, when I joined Blue Sky, the reputation among black folks was how anti-black it was. Now people complain that they can't scroll the Black Sky feed after 7 p.m. And that's, you know, good problems to have, et cetera. And then the other thing I get tagged with on a every 2 days is that they want a private space in addition to the Jumbotron. So me, I'm just gonna try to like work on shipping that for folks. And then when there's a private state solution, y'all work that all out, we'll put that in there. Another thing that I just wanna say, write your own, create your own shit. Like make your own rules. Like Ban from TV was an early feature that I shipped. You know, Aaron talked about listening to the most vulnerable. I think the most vulnerable will ship what they need. I knew ahead of time that people are gonna harass the Black Sky feed. So when they did it, when it materialized, I had that ready. And this is like not a thing that like came with the affordances. What I talk about sometimes, like, I hope the Blue Sky folks still like me after this New Yorker interview that I did. But I'm like, sometimes I do things that like, I know it's not like a part of the protocol or what you intended, but like I'm, you know, like putting a safety feature into a feed that was aligned around a community is like one of those things. It's like, you know, hack on stuff that like makes it work for you. Another thing, this is Safe Skies. So something that comes up for me in conversations is like, okay, app protocol is decentralized, but is Black Sky decentralized? It is still a lot of like the stuff that shows on a feed, like I designed the rules of like what does not get promoted in the content of that. And now I'm hitting limits of like just literal, just like I cannot fundraise and like work with other organizations and do content moderation, do the escalation queue, monitor the feed, do like DevOps. I can't do all those things. And so, yeah, we're building, and Ozone doesn't allow you to do some of this stuff, right? And it's like, it wasn't the fit for it. So Natalie Davis is building this tool called Safe Skies, software against a fearful environment. And it's gonna allow me to like onboard additional moderators that don't necessarily do the like stuff that gets reported to us kind of content, or not necessarily stuff that's like outside of Black Sky, but like it'll allow me to decentralize the piece of, you know, if someone says something anti-Semitic, and not only do I want to label it, I want to take it out the feed because I have that agency. that's a database query I have to do right now. This is going to be like a front end, mobile friendly. Ozone is not mobile friendly. This will be able to like allow folks to do some of this stuff, and you know what I mean. So long story short, don't have the tools for what you need to moderate your communities. Build them. Make credible exit more credible. You know what I mean? This is again, the car files, like you can export all your Blue Sky data today at any point in any given time. You can go to settings, account, export my car file. I'd never opened a car file before. And then this is something this was actually an exercise for the folks who were interviewing for the Rust developer that we were doing. It was like build a diff of the car files. And I hope this is actually right. This is this was one of the good solutions for it. But yeah, and do other wacky shit, you know what I mean? Like build a local first app, put a PDS in a browser, like build some weird app view, like, you know what I mean? Build like Cerulean, the relay, like that's like, it just crawls the like small PDS. Do whatever you want, you know what I'm saying? I really like this, I just wanted to have a slide with this piece. We were hiring, but I think we're in the final stages of it. But, you know, another thing that like, for folks of like bringing people into the project is like, people ask me about the Rust stuff. And I just want to say that like part of the hiring was like really cool. It's like people are like, oh, the only things that they can use Rust for is like video games and blockchains. And now you have like this thing that you could use it for and like contribute and work on it, and it has a huge impact on a community of people. So yeah, what other people think does not matter. What the devs in the Discord think does not matter. Build for the community that you want to work with and you care about, and figure out what they need and just ship it. TLDR, march to your own beat, and if I could be of any help, and Black Sky could be of any help, say hi.
Thank you so much, Rudy. All right. Folks have questions. Yeah. Come on up, Nick.
I feel like you're going to ask a hard question.
Hi. First of all, I love and respect you. This is fantastic, and I am so glad that you're on the Lexicon Community Technical Steering Committee. I think skeuomorphism is super cool, and it's also a double-edged sword. And something I think about is, as we're designing apps and lexicons, and we're helping people wrangle data, how can we make sure that skeuomorphism isn't encouraging bad design or systemic problems, et cetera? How can we ensure that we're not just having a continuance of things from other systems and places? And do you have any thoughts on where you draw the line and how we can be thoughtful on the design of the data structures that we use and how that applies?
It's very, very interesting. I think I always go back to like what are the needs of the folks that you want to build for? So someone else had mentioned this, like they wanted to build a way to generate, like could use a lexicon to like generate a website, long story short. And I don't know, I think one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is like getting into like the lexicon hacking and like getting people. There's lots of stuff there. Stuff is happening in the Discord. It's hard for me. I mean, not the Discord, the GitHub discussions. That's hard for me to follow sometimes. Who's involved in the conversations around that stuff? Can the lexicon support some of these other things? I think stuff is just really early in designing lexicons, but I think the cool thing about lexicon community that excites me the most is the fact that it is kind of this like shared resource for coming up with these apps, app schemas and structures that are independent from Blue Sky. I think I would like to see more things move over to lexicon.community, especially like something like com.appproto, the namespace. And then, yeah, I think if there's ways to make the lexicons more like immediately useful for folks. Like when we talked about like third party, like is Blue Sky a browser or a microblogging site? Surfacing lexicons, I think, also is another way, because like, yeah, it's just about getting people to adopt it and use it and fitting their needs. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of what brings up for me. Word.
Hey Rudy, thanks. This is awesome, and it was like, just very like super inspirational, because I've been thinking about kind of like medium-sized communities as well, and like not 10 and not a zillion. So I know you use the words like second rate, which I think is sometimes like a label that gets put onto something that's functional sometimes, but maybe not as polished in the traditional like VC funded way of thinking about things, right? And so I was wondering if you had thoughts on like how do we encourage more kind of like vernacular, to borrow that word, community building. Like what are the tool sets for people who don't know Rust, who don't know Go, who can't approach, cobbling together something that's still pretty technical, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the stuff with the protocol is always going to be tough, as like there's always just that technical barrier to entry of like who can kind of like understand it all and like implement solutions for folks. So I feel like I guess I sidestepped that problem by thinking about the people who are very determined about like building the communities for folks. And now what I will say, what that brings up for me, is that I talk a lot about how ozone, community moderation. People have like kind of like shitted on community moderation a little bit because of there not being too many of them. And like if you think about how to like get started with that today, you have to know how to build a moderation team, like come up with moderation policies and deploy ozone and like know DevOps. So I think the easiest thing to just do is like get the technical stuff out the way for people. Like, yeah, like that's kind of my answer for that.
What's up, Rudy?
What up?
Good shit.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Tony.
Yeah. You kind of like alluded to, like after we get through the skeuomorphism like phase, like kind of building a new vision for social. Could you talk about like generally what you see that as, and then more specifically for Black Sky, like what you see that as?
Yeah, I guess what's tough for me is I'm not really a front-end person, so I really do like building these like back-end services that just enable certain things to happen. I think stuff like what you were working on and you're talking about like, okay, like can you build tools that, like what you were working on doesn't look anything like a front-end app.
Do you want to shout out what Tony's working on?
Yeah. So Tony's working on this tool called Savant, right? Savant, and it's kind of like, can you build a feed and like by like entering like a prompt, and like it's trying to like leverage the like public nature of the app protocol data and social graphs, and then make that really easy for people to identify content, particularly like maybe if they're like the scientific community, can they like find all the folks doing like quantum computing research and talking about that and sharing papers. That is cool. Like all the feed builder stuff was really cool in the beginning because the idea of it was, can you give end users the ability to shape their social experience? But then it was like, use regex. And you know what I mean? And then it was like, and then, with all due respect to everybody, I mean, but like, or like a no-code feed builder, but like, when you're like, use natural language, like as a search, like I think stuff like that is really cool. That again goes back to what I was just talking about, like reduce the technical barrier for people. People don't want to have to think, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, once you start from, instead of the solution, from the human aspects, like the people you have in mind, like you started with like you had a certain set of users that you wanted to build for. I was telling you stuff and you were like, I don't even care about those folks. And I was like, I like that. Like exclude, like don't build for everybody. Like there's some, it goes back to like some kind of like annoying SYC advice. It's like you don't need 100 people who kind of like you. You need 10 people that love you. Like that's really like it in a nutshell. And so if you build for those folks, I think you invent new paradigms that like fit whatever their needs are. Yeah. Word.
Hey, great talk. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I was at What's the Future of Black Twitter Summit about 2 years ago. Frankly, I didn't belong there. uh, but it was really interesting because one of the things that came from the group of people that were there, it was only like 25 people, but like from Black Twitter, was that they, the reaction to the idea of decentralization was, we don't believe in your utopia.
Right.
And we're not afraid of Twitter because we're used to this stuff.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to ask, like, how do you talk to your community about, this sort of utopian idea when people are kind of afraid, like, not even bothered about it? And I think not just Black Twitter, Black Sky faces that, like everyone faces that. So I think you've done a really amazing job on that. So.
Oh, thank you. I was having this talk with this dude Mike yesterday, and he was like trying to kind of like scare me, and like I think there's a lot of like white folks I feel like that are like, oh, this is like such a perilous time. I'm like, it was always perilous for, you know what I'm saying? I got locked up last year doing protesting. Like, I mean, it's like I never felt safe in this country. So the whole now we don't have constitutional rights. Now people can get away with hurting us. I'm like, that's just so funny to me. And so that's why also I don't give people I don't believe in the you should be scared, that's why you believe in decentralization. I think Black Sky has grown from a place of joy. I think you see a new experience that like, oh, people say like, you can just, one of the most positive things I saw was like people signed up and they were like, oh, Black Sky is like one of the most kind of affirming and joyful experience, and it was just 100 replies of just like, yeah. And I think that made this like weird effect of people saying like, oh, like it's just like a honeymoon phase right now. But I think what you see is like, no, like I control hopefully make it, but I control the algorithm, you know what I'm saying? So it's not, you see what I have like, I've felt like I've learned over time that people want to see, and I try to remove the stuff people don't want to see, and I try to foster the stuff that is like, I try to encourage things that are community building. Like the Black Sky algorithm has never been simple or straightforward. There's like 100 lines of things that remove content. I'm trying to find ways to like this is where like the social stuff interacts with the technical stuff, because it's like, how do you design something that achieves the thing you want? And sometimes that means you have some like shitty Python script that deletes posts every and runs every 1 minute. Sometimes that means you improve the indexes, you change some strings to some date times, and you know what I mean? And now the trending query loads quicker, and so now people can feel that they get caught up on things faster. Maybe that means you recognize that big accounts have 100,000 followers, but that is not necessarily all Black folks, and it's not they may get likes quicker, but that doesn't mean that those are the folks who should show at the top of the trending feed. This is how it all kinds of I think once you can't scare people into using something. You build cool shit that like makes them feel good about themselves.
Can I just shout out joy as a motivator is amazing, and also like a recognition that terrible things and good things coexist at the same time, and like thinking about both of those together and how you want to rank and prioritize them is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like mutual aid survival work, that was also part of that Dean Spade slide. Where
first, I want to say, Andy, Scott Forstall will fight you over skeuomorphism, so be careful with that. But I want to say I'm proud of you, right? Like, from where Black Sky started, like you said, it was literally like, bro, I'm going to take this, right? I want to take this out. I want to have this feed. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of work. But for what and for who? And that's like for me, for us. And that's kind of been your North Star this entire time, right? And so I want to say that in person. I've said it many times, but I want to say in front of everybody that I'm proud of you. Just from where it came from, the work that you're putting in, right? And being a young Black leader.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's kind of sort of like coming off from where blame's coming from in terms of Black Twitter has been entrenched for some time. right? And our people are used to things being dangerous, used to things being uncomfortable. And so we can have this, while it's great, it's resilience, but we also have this very stubbornness about us, like, I'm not going anywhere, right? Like, even in places that have let us know they don't want us there. And so my thing to you is, like, how are you going about advocating for Black Sky and letting our people know, like, yeah, of course, like, this is not a step on your resiliency, but here's a space where we're trying to nurture. Here's a space that, like, joy matters, right? And where you can be safe, but you can still be resilient, and you can still do what you need to do.
Yeah, great question. I feel like sometimes people kind of describe me as a community builder, and I don't really think that I, like, built community, because I never invited people. I never promoted. I know. I crafted the space, and what I like to think, you know, it's pretty bad that I don't know why Black Sky grew, but what I like to think is that people saw me solving problems each time, and I think the problem with, like, oh, everything's fine over here, that's also, like, unrealistic. And so I think people recognize that. And then when things were like, when they saw problems come up, they saw that they could reach out to somebody and that person could fix it. So I don't think it, like, stepped on the resiliency, because they saw that we were still resilient, we just had more tools. And so that's what I like to think. I like to think that people just see that, like, a racist troll showed up. Oh, we were able to resolve that. We're able to, you know what I mean, work with the Blue Sky sometimes with, like, their trusted safety team to, like, prevent raiding of the feed. I think it's the fact that there's this rapid response, you know what I'm saying, that we're still fighting, but there's, like, more tools at our disposal versus, like, just everyone quote post this person, everyone block this person. Like, you can still do those things, but then we also have this, like, additional layer. I think that's what it's helped, personally. Where?
Thank you. We're running a little bit over time.
Yep.
Thank you, Rudy, for all the things that you do and how thoughtful you are about it and the example that you set.